Bokuphobia. So, hello everyone, this is an important video, hope you guys share the video, press like button, right? This video needs to be talked about. Bokuphobia, the hatred of tomboys. So, hello everyone, here, this video is going to be very important. Seriously, it's a topic that has been nagging me for years, right? You know, I've already done more than one video about Yamato, but I feel this is generally an issue, right, in the West, honestly, right? When the West looks at characters from Japan, China, and Korea, and so on, and also their own stuff, they love to misgender characters, right? They love to pretend that a woman, because she has like a masculine tone or whatever, because she's muscular or whatever, that the woman has to be a transgender character, right? And of course, as I said in this video, this is not a critique on trans people, right? And probably trans people. For example, in One Piece, the problem with Kaido, right? Which is an actual trans character in One Piece. The problem, of course, we're talking about here is Yamato and a bunch of other characters, right? Which are not trans characters. This is a woman that has a masculine feature, right? And I said it for many, many years now, because I made a video, links below for that, 3 years ago, when Yamato first was revealed. I said, oh, obviously it's like a typical Japanese tomboy, right? A very common character, and which is called Bokukko. So Bokukko, as I hear on TV Trope text here, is a literal girl, right? It talks like a typical Japanese boy, and uses then, for example, boku, right? Japanese male pronouns. And I wanted to point on this point here, look at the text here. It's a common character quirk. So why are we here again? Well, two reasons, right? So Yamato has again been misgendered, and I want to put out that, honestly, right, these are the people that consider misgendered people. Talking about it in detail here. And also, that's been seen in the One Piece podcast of trying to like censor people, not agree with them. So okay, subscribe, slap button about this video, and really, honestly, share the video, you know? I never actually get to share the video. I was like, subscribe, but no, share this video, guys, because seriously, this is an issue. And I mean, I think it's a comedic issue. I'm going to talk historically here, right? But I can give you, you know, typical these kind of characters in European history and so on, you know, and all the stuff like that too. Coming to later here, for example, Yamato is based on Prince Yamato, right? So this is like this whole thing, and I find it absurd how, honestly, from a political landscape, it's kind of absurd, right? And I'm not going to talk too much this video, but it is weird, right? How it's like, well, a woman that probably be a typical tomboy 20 years ago, and no one would question that. It's like, oh, it's probably a trans woman. Like, no. And again, before we get into this here, again, the emphasis here, right? This video is not critique. I have no issue with trans people, right? Trans characters or whatever. But I'm just saying that, no, these characters, and I will show you a plethora of characters here, are all tomboys, right? You know? They're all usually muscular waifus, so to speak, right? Yeah, but they're muscular ladies, usually with, you know, very masculine features, but none of them identify as the other gender, right? So let's start with the Bokukko, of course, the Japanese tomboy, right? It's a very, very common character. Like I said, I made a video about this with Yamato, right? So links below for that. There's a 30-minute only about Bokukkos. But basically, right, you have a very common feature in anime and manga that you have a character, like a muscular woman, dressing like a boy, right? Talking like a boy and so on, in the sense of how they use pronouns or whatever. But the thing is that these characters, I would say, they're more written as tough girls, right? It isn't about gender. It's more that it's a woman written as, oh, I want to fight you, you know. It's a woman written as a martial art, usually, right? And this is a very, very common trope in Japanese manga and anime. And I have to say, first of all, right, massive issues to point out here is that I really do think that people that are Bokuphobes, right, Bokuphobes, they're probably cultural imperialists, whatever you call it, right? Because they cannot, for a second, imagine that our culture can be different than them. Because people are complaining about like Radmar here are obviously people that look at everything from their lens, that usually like an American perspective lens. They have no understanding of Europe or Japan or China or whatever, right? They look at it from an American lens, and they're like, well, this woman here is dressed kind of masculine, she's showing, you know, her muscles and so on. Has to be a trans character. No, in Japan, this is, again, a very common, like, you know, tomboy martial art girl, right? A very, very common trope, right? I think that's one thing. So either they're like, you know, I don't know, racist, something that... honestly, I'm a little bit, yeah, honestly. Or, I suppose, I really do think that when it comes to Yamato's case, One Piece is the biggest sold manga of all time, right? And I really do think that these people have never seen another anime. It's common. This character is so common. So, for example, Ranmari, right? Classic bimbogami, straight up racist boy, right? Most and so on. The first example, Ryunosuke from Urusei Yatsuru, which is, I think it's the first example of in the manga anime. So Ryunosuke for that matter, voiced by Lucas voice actor in the classic, and the father's voiced by Buggy, but for that matter. But anyway, she is raised by her dad, right, to take over his dojo. Exact same storyline with Ranmaru. They both are typical Boku girls, raised by their father in a martial arts setting, right? So, you're gonna take over the dojo, right? Incredibly common trope. You have the power. It's a woman raised by a father to be a basketball pro. Like, it's such a common trope, And of course, everyone else thinks she's a pretty guy, right? And again, this storyline is so common that I really do think that some people that are hating on Yamato, refusing to that Yamato is a woman, right, have probably only seen One Piece in their whole life. I really do think so. If you can understand a very classic Japanese tomboy, you probably never seen any other anime of life, or you'll be being dishonest, right? I can give you loads of examples of girls with the Sarachi. And I can sit there all day, who's showing more and more, like, there's so many examples of this girl, and usually dressed in the same way too, Yeah, usually, this is sort of incredibly common trope. You can basically find this woman in almost every, I feel, manga and anime. And of course, you have Beelzebub, where like literally every woman, more or less, is dressed like a Boku girl. Every woman, right? Because it's an anime about Yankee. So every person except Hilda, which is like a warrior maid. Everyone else is like basically a street fighting girl with a wooden sword, right? Yeah. So a very, very common trope, right? Now, let's talk about historically. Of course, this character of a cross-dressing woman into a man is a very classic character, right? In Europe, right? You have Joan d'Arc, Mulan, of course, probably the most famous example, right? And so Mulan, then, what's the storyline? I assume I was in Mulan, right? But again, storyline is that she has to dress up as a man, right? To join the army and then fight and so on, right? But you would never see that Mulan is a trans character. No one's going to sit there and say that Mulan wants to be a man, right? No, Mulan is pretending to be a man for a goal, for an agenda, right? And again, this storyline is super common, right? You can find so many examples of this storyline of a woman dressing up as a man to, of course, do some kind of thing that the women aren't allowed to do, right? This story can be found in basically every culture, right? Again, I think Mulan is probably the most famous example, but I mean, usually it is a soldier, right? And that, of course, means that most of these females, right, like Mulan, are usually warriors. Because, they have to infiltrate and pretend to be a man, have to fight in a war, or something else similar to that. So usually they are more masculine, maybe more muscular, at least better have warrior than a random average woman, right? They usually are better fighters and so on. And of course, in that sense, they usually are also tomboys, right? Or boku girls or whatever, right? They just are similar because, of course, like they have to infiltrate and be a fighter and so on. As we see with Mulan. And, but again, this is an incredibly common trope, right? And I really do feel, if you disregard the whole thing of One Piece, Yamato and everything, right? Isn't it incredibly just dishonest from people? And I don't think it was Twitter there, but people in general in today's media, that it's just like, oh no, everyone is trans. No, I don't think everyone sees Mulan as trans, right? And for that matter, this here is Thor, okay? Thor cross-dressed in one of the classic storylines with Thor and Loki and so on, in the classic, like, Norse mythology, as a woman, of course. So, not only do we have the classic storyline of a woman becoming a man, right, for whatever agenda, but you also have many stories where men, of course, dressing up as women, right, to infiltrate, the enemy forces, whatever. So, come on, are we going to say that Thor's a trans character? Is the old Norse mythology, is that like trans, progressive trans storyline? But no, Thor's infiltrating this, Jotun stronghold, right, to get his hammer back or whatever. Yeah, no. Thor is just like a god. It's just a strategy, right? Yeah, it's just, oh my gosh, tired of it. And also, for that matter, what I bring it up as well, very important here for the whole Yamato thing, right? People refuse to accept Yamato. The Yamato is actually based on, of course, Prince Yamato. So Prince Yamato is this legendary prince in Japanese, like, mythology / history, kind of like a historical magic guy, But anyway, Prince Yamato does, of course, the Thor thing, where he dresses up as a woman to infiltrate his enemy's stronghold, right? So you can see how Oda, they written, of course, One Piece, how he's just like, oh yeah, but it's kind of funny if I, reverse that thing. So it's a woman dressing as a man instead to do this thing, right? Yeah, and with the same name, right? I mean, it's a very obvious reference to an historical figure in Japan. This is right. And of course, it's put out, speaking here, that Kaido's crew, I said it before, I said it again, Kaido's crew is based on, he's like a Mongolian empire, right? So it's kind of similar to a lot of these typical Chinese and Japanese storylines of, like, dressing up as a man or whatever to, get into court or so on. And the rest of the people, like Black Maria and so on, are clearly like Yakuza or Yankee characters. Again, clearly, a lot of these Boku girls 60, right? Talk like men and so on. So this is also, Yankee girls, right? His mother, Yankee ladies. So again, this is like a common thing in Japan, right? And again, Kaido's crew is based on this kind of outfits, right? They're all a bunch of like Yankees or Yakuza, slash with, you know, some Mongolian empire thing going on. But clearly that Black Maria has that, you know, very, very typical Sarachi and everything. Yeah, so Black Maria is a straight up Yankee lady, right? So it's just absurd for me. I said for 3 years now, people keep like misgendering Yamato, especially with One Piece, right? It's so annoying because, come on, like this is the most obvious thing ever. Have you never learned anything about Japanese culture? Jesus Christ, guys. For example, you have what Sukeban is, right? Again, more of the videos in the detail, but in Japan, this is a Yojo girl Sukeban. She fights with her Yojos, right? And you can see they're all dressed in this bad outfit, right? They had the fighting with some Yojos and chains and so on. So this is like a classic trope in Japan. I'm just tired of it. I say it keeps saying it. This is in Japan, no one is ever questioning Yamato Gender I. Every Japanese reader immediately knows Yamato is a woman, right? No one's like, oh yeah, she's man. No. Everyone's like, oh yeah, she's clearly it's like a Sukeban or a Yankee or whatever. There's no question about it, right? It's only people that are seriously, probably racist against Japanese people. Yeah, honestly, I almost gonna say I'm saying they're Bokuphobic, and I almost wanna say that anyone that says Yamato is a man is probably a racist. And you know, we got a bunch of other I mean, I guess it's all day now. We got a bunch of other muscular, you know, Tomboy is a girl. It's all about her and proving she's a woman, right? Ubi to the basket, she's a Yankee girl. I guess they're all they talk about Yankees, right? And they're all not trans characters. There's masculine tough girls. So anyway, that's kind of the backstory, right? You know, again, Bokuphobia is when you're trying to force a tomboy to be misgendered, right? And I really want to emphasize that I mean it quite. It's not joking this video. I never joke it. It's quite literal, right? Because I'm just like, are you kidding me? These characters are so clearly Japanese tomboys, and again, you can see it with like John the Ark, Mulan or whatever, right? And people are gonna claim that Mulan is trans. Some people probably are, but you know what I mean? Like it's just absurd. But I bring it all up, right? Because of course, as always, this Yamato thing with One Piece keeps going on, right? I think, just put out again, really, that's what I'm really putting out there. I do think though, that if you ignore the whole thing of Yamato, people are still being Bokuphobic though, right? Especially Twitter or whatever, because yeah, they really hate, you know, to become tomboys. And I think that, it's a professional standpoint here now then, not me more at my, as I work with behavioral session, right? I think that it is because people unfortunately see everything in this very like black or white world, right? Where it's like, well, if this woman is muscular or she's quite, you know, masculine or whatever, right? She has to be a man. No, maybe she's just like a muscular, you know, beefcake, right? You know, but no, it's like, no, she has to be a man. Like maybe she's just a muscular woman, right? I think that's also one thing I've seen for many years now. I keep saying it, but it's frustrating, and I see a lot of friends the same thing. Like people that like muscular chicks, right? People that like chicks like this, that looks like this, right? That, or she's a muscular uni, and that's like, oh, there has to be a man. No, what if you just like muscular women? Honestly, I think it's kind of hilarious because I do feel that how the talking going right now on the internet, right? It's kind of like it's a hatred for muscular beef chicks, right? Especially then if a guy, right, like, you know, likes muscular chicks, right? It's like, oh no, you know, you're trans. No, I like muscular women. You know, like, I mean, it's just so weird. Yeah, no, we're gonna force her to be trans. Like, no, I think she's just like a muscular woman. And one of my favorite examples is Melona, because people call her like the female Kripachi or the female white bears and that. I think she's gonna mix that. And obviously, it's a very, very masculine woman. It's like, I wanna fight and so on like that. And again, it's like, I have seen people be, oh, she's a trans character, she's so manly. Yeah, she's manly, but she's like a very angry woman, you know what I mean? She's just like a woman that's a fight, yeah, she's a woman that's like a blood knight, she loves to fight. Doesn't mean that she is a man or has any trans things or whatever. It's just really weird, but I think it's going back to what I said earlier, that people are, honestly, too black and white, right? Oh, but if this woman is manly, she has to be, you know, she's acting manly, she has to be a trans character. No, what if she's just in the gray zone of being less, you know, feminine than other characters, right? But she's still not a man, and it goes other direction too, right? You can have a man that is more feminine, right? More feminine doesn't mean that man automatically is trans in the other direction. No, it doesn't mean it is autonocal, but yeah, it's just kind of upsetting to me. But I think come from that black and white thing, and from a political standpoint, the people, of course, that are hating, right, on the tomboys or the masculine woman or whatever, are just people with very low empathy, right? And if you look at science, and I mean this quite literally, if you look at how people vote, right? People that vote for a certain demographic tend to have very low empathy. And that's why they can't, that's why they're so into this superficial stuff, right? Because they can't actually understand underneath saying so on. And it's a very common thing. You can see how people are arguing and so on, right? And when they can't really, like, how I say it, can't understand the opposition's standpoint. Right? It's very, very clear if you look at political debates what side of the political aisle can't comprehend what all people are saying, which are the same thing as agreeing with them. But anyway, I digress. Let's go back talking about Yamato's case specifically here. So again, then, right, I bring this up because Yamato's being misgendered, but unfortunately, the Yamato voice actor, in English of course, I don't think the Saru Hayami, beloved Japanese voice actor, isn't misgendering her, right? And she never would. But immediately, and I read it about earlier, right, last week, immediately it's like, why do I have people for? First of all, let's say one thing here. This reminds me of the One Piece live action, right? Okay, so the One Piece live action coming out in a month from now, roughly speaking. You know, immediately when one of the directors working on live action, he's getting, you know, Twitter followers, YouTube, whatever. He's getting famous, right? Because he's working on the one, like, you know, yeah. Immediately, he's just like, oh, you know, I love Kamala Harris or whatever. You're like, why is he talking about political stuff? You know what I mean? I just say immediately, I hate it. You know, I have sort of respect, I guess, for people that get any kind of fame for everything they're doing, right? For example, if I go back to personally, when I worked with some of these big, famous game brands, right? What if I said immediately, it's like, okay, yes, I get it. My game has sold 10 million copies. Let me talk about how much I like, you know, this politics. To me, that is like silly. To me, that's silly, right? You know, I'm not here, I'm talking about games, yeah. I don't like it. So the live action director immediately goes out talking about his political standpoint, Sukeban. I massive dislike for it. But anyway, same thing I could watch with the voice actor then for Yamato, right? Immediately it's like, oh, I'm gonna misgender, I'm gonna be Bokuphobic, and I think it's Bokuphobic, right? You know, the voice actor certainly knows that Yamato is a woman, right? Because Oda said she's a woman like several times now. Vivre card, comment later, Vivre card, the books, the Oda box. It's said many times for the last years, right? Even after simple people like Arthur that fake transited and so on, right? Been exposed, etc. So everyone in the right mind knows that Yamato is a woman. Even people that would be, you know, it's hard to not know it, right? All the data. And also, like the first chapter. I mean, I keep saying, I knew immediately, or actually, I never considered her being a man from the first chapter, basically. You know what I mean? Yeah, but anyway. So the new voice immediately has to misgender. And I think that what I really want to point out here in this video, if anything in this video, right, is that imagine if you had this thing and reverse it, right? Imagining if a new actor comes out and straight up misgenders a character that is male to female, right? It's an actual trans character, right? So you have a character like, say, Kiku, right? And, you know, Kiku, male to female, you know, people use her, right? Imagine this voice is going to be like using him for Kiku, right? People have an outrage, right? Yeah, everyone was hating that. They probably get fired, right? Yeah, they probably even get banned. You know what I mean? You think about that. Reverse the thing, yeah. Reverse the positioning. If someone would misgender, that's really important. Think about if someone had misgendered a trans person, right? Like this, what's called like deadnaming or whatever, right? Yeah, people would have cancelled this actor immediately. But now, when they are clearly misgendering Yamato on purpose, right? They're clearly breaking whatever, you know, logical things in the world, then it's fine, right? It does really annoy me because it's so clearly misgendering. And it should be the same way around, right? Like forcing someone to be a man or a woman should be as bad, if not worse, but logically at least equally bad as dead-naming someone else not decided. This is straight at that, right? There's also, of course, Yamato should be preferred Uden, if you want to say him, right? But that's one thing I want to bring out here. Now, I'll talk about this next part here, though. It happened just recently, a few years ago. That Ray says Desu, right? It happened just a few days ago. I saw it yesterday. It was when I made the video. So I'm thinking about this Bokuphobia for a few weeks, probably. But especially yesterday. So I'm not going to show anything here, right? Because this person, Ray, had his videos getting copyright striked, right? By the One Piece podcast. So I'm just going to mention One Piece podcast here. I'm not going to show anything, right? So they can't start this video. They might still do it anyway, but I doubt it because his video got reinstated, so I doubt it. But still, I'm just going to be like that, right? But why take the chance, right? So, first of all, One Piece podcast, they have hosted, as I mentioned earlier, right? The director talked about weird political stuff. So I'm not surprised, right? They're Bokuphobes. I'm surprised for a second. But this to me is just extreme, right? So one of them had drawn an image of Yamato being disgusted, basically, right, by Oda's Vivre card that says Yamato is a woman, right? So, and I agree completely with Ray here. That said that's just so, how to say it, lame, disgusting, whatever, pathetic, whatever you want to call it, right? Because if the author is like, well, this character is a woman, right? If the author is like, this here's a woman, a muscular lady, right? If the author says that, then you gotta say, no, it's a him. Like, that's weird, right? So they basically did the art where they were like, we will refer to Yamato as him, even if the author is telling us to be wrong, you know what I mean? So that's crazy. So he critiqued that. He made a video critiquing them, which of course is fine, definitely fair use, absolutely fair use, right? 100% fair use. And his video then got a copyright strike, because I guess he showed their like Twitter image or something like that, right? But obviously, it's not about copyright as in, oh, he showed our image, right? Of course, he's critiquing them. He's saying that they are, disingenuous. He's saying that they are lying about, the storyline or whatever, right? So his video is about a critique. I've seen the video because it returned by YouTube. So his video is basically critiquing them, right, for their bad behavior. And they copyright striking him because showing one image. So already there, they lost any goodwill, respect, I think, for anyone, right? Because that's just ridiculous, right? If someone critiques, if someone strikes my video here right now because I'm critiquing them with the whole Bokuphobia, what would they strike me for, right? They would strike me for something else, you know what I mean? I show that image of biker Yama, something, yeah, like, it would be very, very weird, right? You know what I mean? It would be very weird. It's not really about, of course, the actual content, what I'm saying, right? It's just like trying to silence you, right? So they clearly have to silence it. But I think that goes to just the mild these Bokuphobe takes, right? So again, the art is clearly Bokuphobic, right? The art is anti-Tomboy, very, very phobic. And then following that, right, when someone critiques them for it, they're now striking that person for censorship, right? Going after that person, trying to ruin their channel or whatever, because they're critiquing their Bokuphobia, right? I mean, that's just insane. But it's also almost kind of funny, right? Because, again, the critique is very, very valid. Critiquing someone saying that you can't just ignore actual facts, when the author is like, here's the facts, you're like, F you, author. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right? So the critique is completely valid, it's 100% logical, right? They clearly have no leg to stand on. And then when being critiqued, that trying to remove that critique, right, is just insanely absurd. It shows them how incredibly agenda-driven they are, right? But I made this video too, because that to me is that classic Bokuphobia, right? As I said earlier, right, remember, when I exposed Arthur of O'Hara, I was the one that exposed that he was fake translating One Piece, right, And I don't understand people have respect for him anymore, but he fake translated Yamato and all the One Piece chapters, right? And he fake wrote the stuff, and when I called him out, like 3 years ago, and said, you're lying about the actual Japanese language, you're lying about Japanese culture, right? So I pointed out to him, and on Reddit, and on Twitter, on YouTube, everywhere, all this, Sukeban, the Yankees, I made videos about that, put Reddit posts, that got gold or whatever, right? And, completely dismantled all his bullshit, right? And yet he was like, no, that's not blah, 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 and so on. Yeah, and he death threatened me, so on. It's ridiculous, It was ridiculous. And that is a thing, right? They see these people, right? They clearly are Bokuphobic, right? They're driven by their agenda. They hate tomboys. And they have this issue and they're clearly misgendering. I think that's just the weird thing too, because, like I said earlier, imagine if an author and One Piece podcaster, what they are doing, right, to the other way around, they will get cancelled, right? Imagine that the One Piece podcast did an art where Kiku was like, being rejected as a woman, you know what I mean? They would get cancelled, yeah. But doing the whole Yamato thing is fine. I mean, it's completely illogical, doesn't make any sense. And that's why I make the video too, because I really think that we have to use this term Bokuphobia. They love to spam the word transphobic. Back like 2-3 years ago, when I exposed Arthur, right, and I was the one that made him write that apology letter. Back in those days, right, people would always call me, other people of course agree with me, phobic with the T-phobic all the time, right? Even like, no, I'm just saying that this woman here is a woman, not a him, a her, and she's, Uden as a character, right, and blah, blah, and so on. And I would say that, and they will also use T-phobic. That's why, from now on, I'm just going to call everyone Bokuphobic, right? If they disagree with me here, I'll say, oh, you're clearly Bokuphobic. Here's the facts right there. So, I really mean it, guys. Hope you guys share this video, because I'm gonna go with this full on. I'm gonna be like, oh, if you disagree with me about, like, Yamato or whatever, or Saki-chan or any other tomboy character, right? There are clearly tomboys. I'm just gonna be like, oh, I can say you're Bokuphobic, right? You hate the Tomboys, yeah. Because that's basically the logic they try to use, right? They have to use the word phobic to try to dismantle the argument, right? So that's a big case. So honestly, I really mean it here, right? Yeah, I think you should share the video, but because I want to get views, but I mean it. Like, I've been thought about this for a few weeks now. It's like, you know what? This is what we should call it. Yeah, these people hate Tomboys. But I do think they hate Tomboys though. And I saw it last in the video. I mentioned it earlier. But I do think it's very similar to, you know, the general culture as well, right? Where everyone is so black and white, they refuse to accept that a woman could be in the middle, right? A woman has to either be feminine or wants to be a man, yeah. To me, that's absurd, right? Gender spectrum, whatever. It's kind of funny because it's the same people that will say that it's gender spectrum, right? But they really don't think so, because if a woman then is masculine and, you know, is a fighter, has big abs or whatever, right? A woman who's like this, they can say, oh, that's clearly a man, you know, yeah. Like, no, that's just like a muscular woman. But they would clearly think that it's a man then, because, oh, she's acting kind of like a man. She's using this term in Japanese, so she probably has to be a man, right? That's how they will act. Which again is kind of comedic when they are like, it's a spectrum or something, right? But no, they want it, but they see the world so black and white that if a woman is somewhat manly, she has to be a man. I used to iterate, right? This storyline is so incredibly tropey, right? Haven't said yet, but you know, I haven't even got into that. But Yamato clearly is mostly insulted by a father, right? I would love that part for that matter. When they say that Kaido is respecting her pronoun. Like, Kaido is like, stupid son! He's like, baka muscular! Yeah, like, Kaido needs to have a son so he can be shogun, right? It's again a very, very classic Japanese storyline, you know, of like a martial art or an emperor dad having a son. You can find loads of other characters in Japanese, Korean, and Chinese storytelling where the daughter has to be a man to take over the throne over. It's a very tropey storyline, especially when it comes to martial arting and fighting. Again, you know, Kaido's cool looks like this, right? It's the whole combination here. And then also, that Kaido hates Oden, right? And he hates that Yamato's acting like Oden. So he's not like respecting her pronoun. He's like, stupid son. He's like an idiot. Yeah, he's making fun of her. He's mocking her. You know what I mean? It's like, that to me is so absurd too. That's my favorite part, when people were like defending the whole Bokuphobia with Yamato, being that Kaido respects it. Like, Kaido is not saying that he loves his son or something. Kaido beats the crap. Kaido's a terrible father. Kaido's a feeder. Kaido's a terrible dad. You think Kaido's respecting her pronoun? Kaido basically just killed her several times. Kaido is like, I hate you. And he's like, stupid son, you idiot. You know what I mean? He doesn't respect her. He just makes fun of her. It's just like absurd. That to me is one of my favorite, honestly. It's so illogical. It's so illogical to say that Kaido agrees with the whole thing. You know, Kaido is mocking her 100%. And also, Kaido needs to have a son so he can be shogun. Typical classic storyline in Japanese storytelling. Jesus Christ. Anyway, guys, hope you liked the video. Please share the video again. And what do you guys think? Are you going to start using Bokuphobia? I obviously made up the word today, so that's my word, guys. If I have more time today, I'm going to write some article about it and be like, here's the Bokuphobia. Yeah, like this. I will coin this term, guys, and I will live on it. And I guess you guys have a great day.